Greetings and welcome to Shihlobo as we bring you another powerful message by Bishop Mosa Sono.
All things are possible to them that believe. To them that believe.
Come on now. Yeah, John 15, in verse 1 to 5, God says we'll bear fruit, we'll bear more fruit and much fruit. Secondly, he said, we're going to see his grace cover us. And in 2 Corinthians 12:9, the scripture says, my grace is sufficient for you. But also God said it will be the year of gratitude. We spoke from Luke 17 about us being grateful people. And we are trying our best, Bazalana, to express our gratitude and to show gratitude to God for the things he does. To also tell others who have played a role in our lives that ralebocha. I felt strongly in my heart that we should also revisit some of the teachings and programs that have made our church what it is. You know, one of the things I want to share with you, one thing I've learned is that I've known this over the years, but I'm more committed to it now. You know, many of you are dangerous people. In a good way. No, in a good way. Some of you lead major companies. Some of you sit on big boards and you are powerful. Whew. I look at some of you in the corporate sector. Sure, I can't believe these are the people I'm preaching to. Oh, nkulunkulu wami. Nkukele botlhoko konyana ya modimo. Hey, Jesu konyana. Botlhoko ntate. But I want to share this with you because for some of you, this might be something that will help you. One of the things I've learned is that you've got to understand what makes the organization work in terms of programs, principles that you put in place. When I talk to pastors and leaders of churches, I tell them that many church leaders have never figured out what is it that makes a church grow. There's a lot of things that churches do, but there's just 5 or 6 that make a church grow. And when you are wise, you'll focus on those 6. Instead of expending your energy in 10 different directions, you'll rather converge your energy in 6 things, do them well, and growth will happen. Success, Barcelona, is not a problem. Growth is not a problem. It's not a problem. Everything needs an environment and the right principles. And if you do that, it will grow, it will change. Now, it may not grow overnight, it may not change overnight, but one day is one day. You understand that? And one of the things in my reflection as we came out of COVID was, I noticed that our programs we had done Mokerekeng, and that our momentum had been disturbed. And I brought this up to our leadership meeting, and I said to them, look, I think we must bring back the month of November to be Family Month again, where we teach and talk about the family, because over the years, I've realized that one of the practice yarona to teach on the family has had a real good, positive effect on people in our church. Now, for those of you who have come recently or who came up in Ville, you may not have a full understanding of what I'm saying. And I'm not saying it in a bad way. I'm not young people. I'm not dissing you. Where's the young people? I'm not dissing you. I'm not saying it because I'm just making a statement that when you meet an organization at a certain stage, you may not understand where we come from. People don't understand the struggles we've had in our church. They don't understand that. So, and I think it's important for us to help people understand. When we started the church, when I became pastor of the church, through time spent in prayer, the Lord really impressed on me several things that he opened my eyes to. Things that were not readily obvious. Mara, if one was to apply himself in that direction, it would make for a lot of transformation. One of the things is that churches in general back then, didn't have men. The men didn't attend church. If they attended church, there were few. And even those few, they were reluctant men. They were not involved men. And it became a subject of prayer for me. I wanted to know, why don't men go to church? Now, there's a number of things. But then that coincided with us realizing our democratic era. And with the advent of democracy, in our attempt to correct the wrongs of the past, personally, I think we went overboard in being hard on men. Now, you ladies, I just want to say this to you. And I'm not going to try and skit around things. All right? I'm not a politician, and I never will be. But I think there were serious mistakes that we made in this country. In our attempt to correct the wrongs, we went overboard. Certainly, it's a fact that women need to be empowered, and I'll be the first one to agree to that and support that. We need to ensure that gender-based violence is dealt with, and I'll be the first one to raise my hand and say, yes, we must do that, and we have done that, and we've been involved. But then we went even overboard to start calling every man a dog. And in the name of political correctness, people started rising up and saying men are dogs. And I remember I had a huge argument with some people who said, but you are a huge influencer. People listen to you in the country. You must also get on radio and say men are dogs. I said, Bonane, speak for yourself. If you are a dog, you say you're a dog, but now I'm not a dog. And I will never accept that I'm a dog, because I'm not a dog. Now, Mamela, I will accept that we have many sins as men. I'll be the first one to raise my hands. But see, I couldn't say that because by God's grace, we were raised in a family of a good man. My late father was a He was a good man. Good man. I tell you, I've often thought, if I can be half the man my dad was, I'd be a good man. Loved his family, loved his wife, loved the children. Got 4 sisters. I saw my dad love our sisters as children, raise them up. And I saw the benefit of a girl child receiving the love of a man. That is a parental love that has no sexual connotations. What it does to that girl, she grows up being a strong woman, strong girl, who's not going to be lied to. When I met Mama Bishop, who's my wife, that was one of the things that impressed her, because she had a great relationship with her dad. In fact, she was her dad's most favorite girl. She comes from a home of girls. I came to get the 5th one, the last one. And her dad was not impressed at all. He wasn't happy at all. But she's a strong woman because she was able to feed from the positive reinfection. A father brings a maturity to a child. These are scientific studies. I want to show you. See, there are fads and beliefs that are being branded around that are not even scientific. A child needs a father's involvement. There's a role that a man plays in a child's life that a woman, no matter how good you are, ladies, you will never be able to play that role. Hi, God, be chance. Hi, God. And it is very unfair to children to be deprived of a fatherly love or involvement. Mara, the thing that most of the people don't see in our country is that from the history of apartheid we come from, and we can't blame everything on apartheid, right? But a good part of the destruction of the family was systemic. It was ingrained in the system of apartheid. And anywhere in the world, if you really want to oppress people, the one thing you must do is to dehumanize the man. Take him away from his family, right? Cause a family dysfunction, and you bring in a virus that will be self-perpetuating. Even now, in South Africa, we're having a lot of family dysfunction that dates back to this, what I'm talking about today. And most people haven't figured out, Babu and Jenna out of 10, and they don't know. In my mind as a leader, it's not just to observe the problem. In my mind is to say, how do we use our platform to bring some solutions? Now, we can't solve all problems, But can we get people to think in a different way? So I made the following decisions as a young pastor. I said, in our church, we're going to intentionally make sure that men can find this place homely. All right? Men can find. Now, we're not going to lie. I'm not going to tiptoe around the truth. We're going to preach the gospel and be confrontational to everybody. Mara, we're going to go an extra mile to be aware of the problems that men have and have men's fellowship that will talk to the men issues. And tone down on accusing men and calling them names, because ladies, many of you don't know our struggles. And you will never know them. You'll never know them. There are things that have to do with being a man that you won't understand, ladies. And unfortunately, sometimes you think you understand us. You don't. Trust me, I know you don't. Okay, you don't. You think you do because you're expressive, because whatever, you think Larissa, you don't know us. And what that does to men is that if you overload men, you know what a man does? He keeps quiet, he retreats on the inside, he becomes bitter. And he's going to lash out to you, he's going to kill, he's going to destroy somebody, but he's not getting helped. And I thought, how do we get into the insides of a man and get him to ventilate into a safe space? That was my thinking. That was my prayer. So what did I do? I went and read books. I visited. I remember there's a time I was doing a trip in the US. I visited Bishop Ulma before I went to his church. I went to Creflo Dollar's church. I went to Bill Winston's church. Now this is what I did about more than 20 years ago, 25 years ago. Young pastor, I had questions I wanted to ask, but I couldn't ask everybody because there's not everybody who is solutions oriented. There are people who choke in problems and all they do is to talk about problems. See, as a leader, I can't choke in problems. No, as a leader, one of the roles I have to play is to try and resolve problems. Leaders solve problems. Now, it may not be easy, I may not have the right solution, but at least leaders don't join in the complainers. You know, in our country, people they rant, they issue rants on social media. Ranting about something is not solving. No. So I remember the one person who helped me a lot, it was Bishop Ulma. No, Bill Winston. Bill Winston. And I remember it was Bishop Ulma. And he told me, he said, when you have men's fellowship, this is what we must do, this is what we must do, this is what we must do. So we came back, we designed land crossers. But then, I intentionally started looking around Mokere Kenyarona to ensure our programming becomes friendly to men. Because when we used to have Father's Day, we would have people come and present Father's Day. And I remember, first time it happened, it really took me off guard. Because the poetry and the speeches about men, instead of the young people who came saying something positive about the men, they started talking about how they had been hurt by their dads. Now I couldn't blame them, that was the reality. I remember there's one poem. In Estata ire Papa Mpama. That was the whole poem. I'm being honest with you. We were at homemakers. I never forget that day. I was sitting there, and I listened to this young man's poetry. No. See, I didn't become this. I listened to his poetry, and afterwards, as Licho, my comrades, I engaged him. I wanted to hear, you know what? And when I heard this boy's background, how hurt he was by an absentee father. And that's what I say, ladies. Don't bring a child to the world that you don't want a father to be involved in their lives. It's selfish. And you guys don't go around making children and you're not going to be there for them. A sign of manhood is not to make children. A sign of manhood is to be present with those children. So in this program, when I saw that, I thought, okay, This is a problem. It's obvious that the experience that children have with their dads is not positive, right? And it's self-perpetuating. You know, I read so many, I've got so many books. The one book that I read, which really opened my eyes, is when they were showing scientific study. This is all over the world, that even hardened criminals, right, will remember their mother's birthday, but they will never remember their father's birthday. That even if their mother abused them, they will love their mom, but they will dislike their dad. And I wanted to know why. And I remember it was Rick Godwin in the early 90s. I remember. We went up Limama. He was preaching in Pretoria in the church called Corpus Christi. You remember? Corpus Christi. And he made certain statements that were unbelievably provocative to me. I mean, in a good way. Talking about the ministry of father, the restoration of the ministry of father, quoting from Malachi, I will restore the hearts of the children to the fathers and the fathers to the children, so that I don't strike the earth with a curse. And he talked about how in the last days God's going to restore the ministry of a father, because if you don't walk in the ministry of a father, then the church, the people will walk in a curse. This is from a domestic standpoint. This is from a church standpoint. This is what affected me to honor my spiritual fathers. Because I realized if I don't honor my spiritual fathers, I'm going to walk under a curse. Thankfully, I was always honoring to my dad and walked in a blessing. As I started learning this, then I came across scientific research. I've got it, is this thick, where they show how children who have a present involved father are so different in their development, academic achievement, in their relational world, in their emotions, in their development of speech and certain abilities. It's a huge thing like this. I couldn't believe this is not from church people. These are secular people who've done research. Then I realized, so if we don't heal the man, the nation will never heal. Yeah. But, Mamana, to heal the man, you can't call him a dog. If you're going to heal the man, you've got to demonstrate to the man that you are willing to listen to his story, even if you don't like it. And he must tell you, and you must believe what he tells you. I remember when I participated in last year, two of the men who were on the panel talked about how they were sexually abused by older women in their teens. We don't talk about these things. How they were actually initiated by older women to become sexually permissive. Yeah. But we don't talk about it because you are holy, ne? We are unholy, but we don't want to talk about it. And I said, mine as a church leader is to confront the truth with everybody and risk not being liked. Like some of you, the willing but it's fine. But if we're going to heal the man, we must listen to his story. So in the church, I took a personal initiative, and somehow God worked it out that many of these young men who were really struggling in their families and had daddy issues, as you call them, would come to me for advice and counsel. And I can quote many of them. But there's this one particular one. I'm telling his story. And he's not the only one. He's not the only success story. But this one was outstanding to me. First time I met this young man, I've never heard so much poison from a teenager. This boy, if Jesus hadn't intervened, he would be a serial murderer, serial killer. He hated everybody, especially his dad. He didn't know who his father was, had never met him, because that had been kept away from him by his mom. Lived in a family. It was a large family. He was the only guy in the family of the girls. And this is what you ladies don't realize. Everywhere you go, generally there's a mother figure involved in a child's life. Even if they may not have a mother, but women are in many things. First of all, if you go to primary school, it's the women who are there. So even if this little girl doesn't have a mom, the teacher at least feeds into the femininity of this girl. Now, Mama Lambazalan, it takes a man to feed into the masculinity of a boy. A woman can't do that. A woman can't do that. In families, you know, it's women. And, I mean, they go to primary school, it's women. Children's church, it's mostly women. You go to hospital, it's women. So you're all surrounded by women. And in many societies, the women are very active, and I congratulate you ladies. Very involved, they take care. I mean, if you check, you know, they're not really the same. We're not trying to be like this, but girl children, once she gets a job, she wants to improve the home, go higher. You want to take care of the mother. The guy, Lamborghini. Doesn't even think about, but it's just these things. So women, you have the advantage of growing around people who feed into your femininity. But the boys don't have anyone. Instead, the closest example of a man, so they get into gangs because men want to belong, right? They learn the wrong language, foul language. They learn how to treat a woman by what Brabisa tells them. And because they go home to a place that has no dad, or if he's there, he's drunk half the time. He becomes bitter, this boy, and he has to figure out things, and all of a sudden he has to get married. Right? He has to become what was never modeled to him. Right? And because he's bitter, once you internalize bitterness, you become the demon that you hated. Many men who saw their dads abuse their mother and they hated what their father did, they become abusers too, because they become bitter against their father, not realizing that with your bitterness, you nail to your life the sin of your father. Well, so this young man, I could see more. You know what I did? I decided I'm going to spend a lot of time with him. I said, anytime you need to come talk to me, come talk to me. When you feel bad and when you feel like killing somebody, come talk to me. Even if I won't be personal for you today. As long as I'll help you. I gave him books, gave him scriptures, prayed with him. I'd take him with me to some other places. I'd refer him to some of the other men who can mentor him. I really tried to become a dad. And gradually, I saw this boy change. My goodness, I saw this young man change. And Bazalana, never underestimate the presence of Jesus Christ in somebody's life. Yeah, I believe in psychology and psychiatry, but there are things that psychology and psychiatry can't do. Only Jesus can do. And thank God this young man loved God, read the books, whatever. And I remember one day I was walking in one of the malls. And as I passed by one of the places, Mohujiwang, I caught out of the corner of my eye this young man sitting at a table. So, you know, I didn't want to interrupt because I could see he's sitting with a group of people there. So I thought, no, let me. But then he calls me. Muruti Mosa, give me forgive my bishop. Muruti Mosa. So that tells you, Muruti Mosa. So I turned, he says, Pastor, please come over here. So I get to the table, and this boy beaming, face beaming. You know what, the good thing about me, can I tell you? I tell people, I think I have a better job than you. Yeah. You know why? Because in this job I'm having, I get to see God transform people's lives. Yeah. I get to see somebody in their darkest hour. And I get to see, after the God factor, what they become. That's why I make the statement. That's why I make a statement. Most people don't understand when I say, now when I see you, when I look at you, I see a champion. You see, some of you don't even believe it. I said, now when I look at you, you know why I say that? I've seen many people come here at a certain point, and several years later, God has produced a champion out of them. If there's one thing that makes me that's better than a bonus. better than a lot of money, better than anything. To see a changed life, that's better than anything. So this young man, let's go back to the story of the young man. So I get to the table, mobile and boteng, beaming face, he says, meet my mother. Meet my sister. Mangwane, Rakhadi. And there was about 5, 7 ladies there with him. And then it dawned on me, this boy has started leading his family. This boy has started playing the role of a dad and a father. I tell you, if there's a day that when I went home, you understand what I mean? You see, if there's a day where I felt, this is what I was born for. This is what I live for. If there's a day, Barcelona, and that's what Buruti gives you. So, fast forward, this young man then came to tell me, Hasatsabone, my susu. And before he could tell others, he came to tell me, okay. The day I performed their wedding. Yeah. La understand now why I kill so. Yeah, because when they were raw. I know them when no one gave them a chance. I know them when society was to say to them, the bitterness you have is the right thing to do, like some of you here. I pray to God that you will get out of your bitterness. I pray to God that you will believe that there's something different for you. I pray to God that you will know that God is able to change somebody's life, and the gospel is the answer to the changed life.
Well, that's where we leave it for today. We hope you enjoyed this amazing series. Join us next week for another powerful word by Bishop Mosa Sono. Feel free to get in touch with us using the details on your screen, and visit our website to find a Grace Bible Church branch nearest to you. Until next time, God bless.
We believe